welcome to Community Women's Voices. This is a joint production between NARAL Pro-Choice Washington and the Seattle chapter of NOW. Today's show is called An Issue of Morality or Health, Sex Education in Washington State Schools. I'm your host, Sasha Summer-Cousineau. If you've been reading the local papers lately, you've probably seen a lot of talk about sex education in our state. And as you can imagine, the broad range of articles and editorials are really highlighting the fact that people have some pretty strong opinions about what youth are or are not learning about sexuality and health in school and who is teaching it to them. This is an issue that has really attracted the attention of lots of people, of youth, of parents, of educators, medical professionals, community organizations, and legislators. Some people feel that abstinence is really the only thing that should be taught in schools, while other people feel that comprehensive and medically accurate information should be presented to the youth. Most recently, on February 5th, Washington's House of Representatives Committee on Healthcare and Wellness approved a sex education-related bill called the Healthy Youth Act, and now this bill can go to the full floor of the House to be voted on. We're going to hear a little bit more about the Healthy Youth Act and talk more broadly about the issue of sex education in just a moment. But first, I would like to introduce the guests that have joined me in the studio today. We have Terry Tomatich, and Terry is a sexuality educator, trainer, and consultant. We have Alyssa Haslam, who works for NARAL Pro-Choice Washington as the field coordinator. And we have Marissa Wilson, who is a student at Kent Ridge High School. So thanks for coming. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm going to start with you, Alyssa. I mentioned the Healthy Youth Act in the introduction. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that is?
Yeah. The Healthy Youth Act is a piece of legislation that has been in front of the state legislature now for about 5 years, and it has have yet to succeed in passing. It is a bill that essentially says that if sex ed is taught in school districts, it must adhere to a set of guidelines. So it must be medically accurate. It must teach contraception, abstinence, relationship skills. And it's not saying that all school districts have to teach sex ed, but if they teach sex ed, there's a set of guidelines that the State Department of Health and the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction have put together saying your sex ed curriculum should be in line with these guidelines, and that's the best kind of sex ed you can teach.
So help us understand why you would pass a bill that wouldn't force schools to teach sex ed, but you said instead says if you choose to teach sex ed. What's that distinguishing characteristic about?
Yeah, well, so what we have right now in our state is the only thing in our rule books about sex ed is that schools must teach an hour of HIV/AIDS, I believe from 5th to 8th grade, or 5th to 12th grade. Most students get their HIV/AIDS prevention education in the 9th grade. That's all that there is on the books. A lot of school districts teach varied curriculum. Some teach no curriculum. Some teach great curricula. Seattle School District has a great curriculum called Flash that they use. And it even goes down to individual teachers making decisions about what they want to teach in their classroom. So this legislation would help to school districts to create a program if they want to, or tool their program so that their district is getting a standard curriculum across district if they're teaching it. The issue also goes down to local control. I mean, there are school districts that school boards, their curriculum committees have the control over what is being taught, how it's being taught, and the state legislature doesn't want to control what school districts teach. But the reality is that this is a health issue. It's a very important issue. A lot of school districts have some component. They just don't have the resources or the tools to really have a good curriculum or know what is the most effective curriculum to help reduce unintended pregnancies, STD rates, that sort of thing at the local level.
So to be clear, if the Healthy Youth Act were to pass, it wouldn't force schools to teach sex ed. Mm-hmm. It just says that if you choose to teach sex ed, you have to present comprehensive and medically accurate information, and that starts with abstinence, and then goes on, to talk about contraception.
Exactly. I mean, there are some school districts that have a health curriculum that they've been teaching. It might be 2 weeks in one grade. It might be a longer session or even 2 hours, but it hasn't been reviewed in 10 years. A lot has changed in 10 years around how people contract STDs, what the rates are, how you can protect yourself. So we just want to make sure that our youth across the state are getting the most current, complete education that they can so that they can make really good decisions for their life and they can be safe.
So you said this is what, the 5th or 6th year this bill has been introduced?
The 5th.
Okay, so this why has it had such a hard time passing? I mean, Washington State is a fairly progressive state. The voters overwhelmingly vote pro-choice. So it seems that this would be a bill that would be kind of easy to get passed.
You'd think. Yeah, so we've had a lot of success in the past. So in 2005 was one of our big years, and it had, the Healthy Youth Act had great success getting out of the House. It's in the Senate is where it got stalled. And in the Senate, we had a closer mix of folks who were pro-choice, anti-choice, Republican, Democrat. It was a closer mix-up there. So what you have is you've got people who don't want to make decisions based on, like there are certain senators who didn't want to vote on it because they didn't want to make their school districts do anything because of the local control issue. This is a very contentious issue. There are a lot of parents in different school districts that get upset about this issue on the pro side and the anti side. Folks who want abstinence only are very vocal. People who are pro comprehensive, medically accurate sex ed are also very vocal. And so it's a contentious issue that a lot of folks don't want to take up. It was hard to get it passed through. And this year, we have a lot of folks who've been elected in this last election season who we've talked to about this, who support this legislation. And so we are fairly certain that it's going to pass. Okay. Fingers crossed.
So has it ever made it to the full floor of the House or the Senate before, or has it died in committee each year?
It did get a full vote in the House in 2005. It had, and in the Senate, it didn't even get out of committee. And where it is now is like you said, it was voted out of the House Healthcare Committee, and it will be going to a full floor vote. And then the Senate is actually going to hear it in committee next week. Okay,
great. So you said that there are people on both sides of this issue who are very, very vocal. I'm curious, what have you heard are the arguments against comprehensive and medically accurate sex education?
The arguments that I've heard have mostly been from people who are proponents of abstinence only until marriage programs. And there are arguments that if you teach kids how to protect themselves, they are going to go out and become promiscuous. They're going to have lots of sex. And that by giving them the tools to protect themselves from unwanted pregnancy, unintended pregnancy, and STDs, that it's giving them a green light to say, yes, now you can go have sex, which isn't the case, because this is the pro-comprehensive and medically accurate sex education community and supporters. Essentially, people are going to have sex in their lifetime. That's a reality. Whether you are 17, 18, 25, 45, people have sex sometime in their lifetime. And the knowledge that you get in school when you're in high school and after is really pivotal for helping you make lifelong decisions of how you're going to plan your family, how you're going to protect yourself, and you really know what your risk factors are. So the arguments that abstinence-only folks use don't really hold water, because it also doesn't take into account the reality that youth are engaging in risky behavior. They may not be having sex, but they are engaging in behavior that does increase your chances of contracting an STD. And so their arguments essentially are that it's giving a green light, and we're putting our youth in risk by teaching them how to protect themselves.
Well, and I referred earlier to a lot of the debate that's happening in the local newspapers, and it seems to me that there are two very clear trends and coming from the opposing sides. And one is really posing this as an issue of morality, and the other is really posing this as an issue of health and community health in particular. I'm curious for our other guests in the room, Terry and Marissa. Alyssa talked about people who are opposed to comprehensive and medically accurate sex ed, saying that if you present these life skills to young people, it's giving them the green light to go out and have all sorts of promiscuous sex. How do you respond to that? How do you feel about that?